Oh, everybody's been talking about this. It's been the rumors of YouTube and in the comic book communities. I got to share my thoughts on this. So here we are, everybody. Welcome back to Dark Avenger Media. I'm Chris, and today I'm going to be touching on a subject that might upset a few of you. So I'm giving you that little bit of a forewarning because we're going to talk about David Zaslav and the cancellation of DC Comics, question mark? Is it the end of DC Comics? And why is he looking for the books? Why is he looking for the books of sales? Why does he want to know so much? And most of us know it already, but we're going to discuss a little bit of that. And I'm bringing Marvel into this too. But Marvel's a little bit safer because they've got Disney mindset and Disney money. And that goes a little bit further, apparently, than Warner Brothers Discovery lately. But DC Comics is in the hot pan, and why? Why is DC Comics in the hot pan right now? Well, it's quite simple. The sales are just not there. And for those of you that don't know who David Zaslav is and you're wondering why everybody's freaking out, David Zaslav has been known to cancel many things. So far, most recent, the Batgirl movie and the Batman animated series that they were going to be bringing back on CW. Both have been canceled by him. Both were in production and canceled. So here we are now. He's asking for DC Comics sales books. And the rumors begin. So before we get into my thoughts on DC Comics and where we're going, let's talk a little bit about the books. And again, this is going to upset a few people, but it has to be said. We are in a very interesting era of comic books. We are old enough to have memories of the golden age. And we are still very young in the fact that we are still growing. The comic community and companies and stories and everything are still growing. But also, things are changing. When I think about the golden age, I think about the beginning of comic books. The pillars that started it all. And how campy those books were. And how things were said that would never be said today in this day and age. And how things were so dated for those times. And the reason I bring this up, and I just hit my microphone, I'm sorry everybody. And the reason I bring this up is because one day we are going to be that golden age. And you can't hide from it because we have Comixology now. Every book, every comic book that comes out from every single company is archived in Comixology forever. They're not going anywhere. So this era of comic books, we're going to say from the year 2010 to now, it's a good 12 years, good decade plus. What is this era going to be known as by future generations? And to be honest, this, in my opinion, is going to be the lost era, the era of forced agenda, the era of forced diversity. Because one thing, and we have all talked about this, we all have, in one way or another, there's been a lot of forced agenda and forced diversity and very little good storytelling nowadays. And again, I'm not saying fully. There are good stories coming out of DC Comics, and there are good stories coming out of Marvel still. It's not all bad. There's still some good stuff. I mean, look at the top 100 charts. And the top 100 charts will show you what people are enjoying. And there's a lot of Marvel and a good amount of DC. Well, it's the top 100. So there's a lot of Marvel and there's a lot of DC in the top 100s. So there are still sales going on and there's still good stories out there. However, there's this little invisible checklist nowadays that a few creators are being given by companies. And they have to follow that checklist. And if you don't know what that checklist is, if you're newer to comic books or you're watching this later on down the road and thinking about getting into comic books, stick around. Eventually somebody will bring up this invisible checklist, or you could just watch all the other media channels on here that literally spotlight whenever anything is done on purpose or forced. And you'll honestly really quickly get the gist of what that checklist exactly is. But there's an invisible checklist that creators get. And it's about putting certain things in books. And the problem is, one of the most important things, the story, is not one of those checks. It's not one of those boxes. And that's the thing. As a reader, all I ask for is good story, good artwork, enjoyment, and to keep me involved in the series, wanting to know more. From a writer's standpoint, a writer should be able to build off of, especially if you're jumping into a series, build off of the previous writer's arc, build character development, give good story, and then set up for the next person who's going to be taking the book over after you, unless you're the end of the book. If you're the end of the book, set up for the ending, and then give the grand finale of the book. And I don't feel like we're getting a lot of that lately. I don't feel like we have. I think first of all, a lot of hiring is done without really truly looking at the work that the people have done. It's more about the people instead of the work. And then the stories are not being done the way they should be. I mean, we've talked about Iceman from Marvel. And of course, Marvel will just say it's our fault. The fans are just small-minded. As a person from the LGBTQ plus community, what? Yeah, exactly. I know you didn't know that because I don't talk about it too often. I still say Iceman is forced. But I guess even though I'm in the community, I have a small mind. Anyway, and then you go over to DC Comics, and you've got Son of Kal-El, for example. And I bring this up, and I know a lot of you guys say, Chris, you reviewed the book. You loved it. I did enjoy it. I thought it was a very good book. And the problem was that word forced started to show up again in the book. Forced agenda, specifically. And I don't blame the writer because I like Tom Taylor's work. I love Nightwing, and I loved a lot of the other stuff he's done. And in an interview, he admitted that the kiss that happened in, I forgot what issue number it was pushed. It was pushed earlier. It was less generically or less built up because DC Comics wanted that out there ASAP. They wanted to make the news, and they wanted this character to be spotlighted for a specific community. The problem with DC Comics is, and Marvel as well in a way, Marvel does it a little less hardcore right now than DC does. They are creating for an audience that doesn't read comic books and never kind of will. So they're trying to impress somebody. It's like you're basically trying to impress somebody who's not interested in the hobby at all. That's like me going to one of my gaming friends who absolutely does not give two damns about a comic book and telling him about a comic book and that he should read it. And he's like, well, I'm glad they put gaming in this comic book and that's why you're telling me about it, but I'm still not interested in reading comics. In this case, DC and Marvel are giving into the voices, but the voices and the people who have the loud mouths don't even read comic books to begin with. They like that it's there, but they're not going to give the money to the companies anyway. And the true loyal, blooded fans who've been with the companies for X amount of years or X amount of time are being alienated and pushed out. Now, enter David Zaslav. And by the way, the reason I bring up Comixology is this part of history for both DC and Marvel will never be erased. So even if down the road they change things up and start giving good stories again and completely deny anything from the past, like DC with the New 52, it's all archived. You can't get rid of that. You can edit it like you did Batman's penis in the first Black Label book, which I had no problem with Batman's penis. It looked good. But I mean, anyway, okay, they edited it out. You can edit stuff in the books, but you can't get rid of the books. And if you do, it's probably going to cost you a lot of money to get rid of that and make people forget. People will never forget. The print copies will always be out there. But anyway, this will be remembered. No matter what. This will always go down in history. And that's why I'm hoping that we live in a future where diversity in comics, in movies, in TV, and everywhere doesn't have to be forced anymore. Because we all already know we live in a diverse world. We all know that. We all live with one another. The one thing we all share in common, except for one person in Australia right now, is we all identify as human beings. We're all human beings at the end of the day, regardless what your ethnic background is, what your actual background is, who you love, how many people you love, whatever, what your pronouns are, regardless, we are all human beings at the end of the day. And when we can all see that and all come together, even regardless of religion, by the way, and take all of our differences and realize every single person, every single individual person is different, and just decide to get along, I'm hoping that that's where we're headed for in the future, where people are going to start saying, even from the communities, that's forced. That's just, I have people in my community that have said that certain books look forced. And they have. They are part of the LGBTQ plus community. They are part of other diverse or ethnic groups. And they're even saying this is starting to get out of control. There are people on YouTube from all across the board, ethnic and LGBTQ plus people, who are making videos saying that this is going too far at this point. I don't know how much more, how louder we have to get. But anyway, I hope we live in a world one day where we all can realize that we're all the same at the end of the day and just get along with one another and be happy. Unfortunately, there'll always be bullies. There'll always be people who are racist, who are disgusting people. You're unfortunately never going to eliminate all of them. I'd like to believe in the year 2022, the number of those types of people has dwindled exponentially, and hopefully will continue to dwindle more and more as those people with that type of mindset slowly get pushed out and society finally comes together as one. But the forced agenda is not working. So David Zaslav, here we are. He's ready to close down DC Comics. Or is he? Here's what I say. And I've said this in multiple videos, and I'll say it again. DC Comics is not going anywhere. Just like Marvel Comics isn't going anywhere. I made a video when Disney bought Marvel, and everybody was like, oh my God, they're going to change it. They're not. They didn't change Marvel, and Zaslav is not going to destroy DC. The worst case scenario is DC will go on sale, and guess what? Who's going to buy DC Comics? That's right, Disney. Because why wouldn't Disney? Then they'll have DC and Marvel under their umbrella. They'll have all the major superheroes. We'll have some cool crossovers between Marvel and DC. And DC will have mouse money. That would be worst case scenario, is they want to sell DC Comics. But that's not going to happen. What will happen? I think that we might get some people that get fired. Some offices might change. We might see Jim Lee get brought back down, bring somebody else in. You might see an exponential cut in comics. I mean, there are about 50 comics coming out of DC Comics right now. Maybe that'll go down to 20, maybe less. Maybe they'll focus on what books sell the best and what books don't, cancel the books that don't, and keep the books that sell good. Maybe he's going to start saying, look, if this doesn't sell, I don't care what agenda you're trying to push, it ain't selling. And that's why I keep telling all of you, talk with your wallet. Talk with your wallet. That's why when Son of Kal-El started to push really too hard with their agenda, I stopped buying it. Because it started to get too much. I was enjoying the book. I loved it. I was okay with John being by. And then they just really put it directly in all of the readers' faces over time. And it just was too much. And even with Iceman and Marvel, they still find ways every now and again. I know that it was just thrown in our faces again in the latest X-Men book. And if we don't like it, or if readers don't like it, well, then I guess you're just ignorant or whatever. But beside the point, I think those are the books that will be canceled. I don't think DC Comics is going to be closed down. Honestly, I will be shocked. I'll be shocked if DC Comics is closed down. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that major changes need to happen in the company, and we need some good stories again. We need some good writers and some good stories told again. Maybe after this whole Dark Crisis thing, we'll get a bit of a reboot again, or a rewind a little bit, and things will fix up a little bit for all of our characters. We can hope. And maybe then, we'll start to get good stories again. That's what we need the most of right now. We need better storytelling. If you want to put agenda in the book, fine. You want to put diversity in the book, fine. Great. We live in a diverse world. Don't force it. Don't push it super hard. And it's a part of the story, but not the entirety of the story. Make it a part, not the whole point of the book, because then you ruin the story, you upset the readers, and then they stop buying your book. That's what needs to be fixed. I think if we get better writing and we get less of this bullshit forced agenda and forced diversity, we will finally have some good books again. And this goes for Marvel too, and I hope Marvel's a little bit, after seeing what's happening with DC, I hope Marvel is starting to think twice about certain things too. And not only that, but a lot of the stuff on Disney Plus is starting to get some really hardcore feedback from fans. So hopefully Marvel is starting to feel a little bit of that that intensity as well. Or how would I put it? They're starting to feel the heat too. And maybe things will change with Marvel as well. But right now we got to worry about DC Comics, right? So that's it. DC's fine. Worst case, they're going to put it up for sale and Disney will buy it. DC's not going anywhere. DC will never be canceled. It just needs some massive, massive work. And there are a lot of people on YouTube right now who are speaking the exact same way. It's not hard to find them. Look up news articles. Look up people talking about stuff going on in DC and Marvel, and you'll find people. What I like to do, and like what I always say I like to do, is I like to keep things as objective as possible. I don't want to make it look like it's totally doom and gloom, but at the same time, everything's not amazing 10 stars, out of 10 out of 10 moments here either. So I don't want to sugarcoat things either. I try to give all of you as much of the truth and as much of my feelings on it as I can, uncensored. But with that, that's it for this video. If you'd like to join the Discord community and share more things, this was actually shared with me on my Discord, and somebody wanted to hear me discuss it. So here we are. If you'd like to hear me discuss other news pieces, you're welcome to join the Discord. We have a suggestions tab on there. If you'd like to share an article and hear my thoughts on whatever the news piece is, feel free to share it there and join the community. We have an awesome community of gaming and comic book people working together and having a good time and hanging out. And we have some good gaming sessions and hangout sessions on the Discord as well. Social media is also in the description below. Until next time, everybody, take care, keep reading, keep collecting, and I will see all of you really soon in the next one. Later, everybody.